Hello and welcome back to another Motivational Monday right here on See Hear Love, and we have a great show for you today. Because today I'm with my two very smart and funny co-hosts. Are you laughing? Abby and Joanna.
Hi.
You are smart and funny and beautiful. And we have a very special guest with us who has dropped by in between his insanely busy speaking touring schedule to hang out with us in the kitchen. Mike Gordon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great.
Isn't this way better than speaking in front of 22,000 people
Way
being
better.
just with us?
Oh, way better.
I thought so.
You're
Good
awesome.
answer.
No, way
Good
better.
answer.
I
Thank
thought
you.
so. Yeah, that is a good answer. Because you could have been saying, well, actually, no.
No.
I like the crowds of 22,000 listening to me.
You guys have personality. Not to say the crowd don't, but
Yeah, that's
I can make
true.
eye
It's a
contact,
faceless
right?
crowd. Yeah.
It's all about that.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit so that we get to know you more, a bit about what you do. And in that, tell us your favorite speaking gig so far. Because you've done
Wow.
like 2,000 plus,
Yeah,
right?
been,
Gigs?
been quite a bit. Yeah, about
Yeah.
over 2,000 now.
Okay.
So, So right now I'm on the road full time as a speaker. I'm under an umbrella called Youth for Christ Canada, and I'm entering year number 7, traveling full time.
Wow.
Yeah, which is pretty
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
Funny enough, as I do speaking right now, I've been in full-time ministry 14 years, and the first 3 or 4 years, speaking was not my thing. I had no passion. I did not like speaking. Like, I had a great time talking to people, praying for people, playing games. When you said, Mike, go in front of 7 people and speak, I'm like, no thanks.
Yeah.
So when I started ministry, if someone told me 14 years later, you will be here doing speaking, man, it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
I think we all can say that, how God works in our life and whatnot. But through those years, before I started traveling full time, reality is that speaking got put on your plate. You had to do it. It's ministry, you had to teach, and through that passion began to grow. And in that time, I really felt this dream to say, you know what, maybe this is something God put on my heart. I love people. I love being able to teach and share and communicate and really essentially walk with people in regards to the Bible and how it really applied to their life. Now, again, I had no idea what that would lead to. But years and years ago, I really felt, let's give it a shot. So I started, seeking out opportunities, and you're in Bible college, you start, harassing your friends. Hey, can I come speak to your youth group? People actually called back in those days, and
What was it called? Oh,
yeah,
right.
and you would hope for any opportunity, right?
Yeah.
For someone to say, you know what? Come in on a Friday night. I'll let you do something there, and that started the domino effect of little door there, little door here, and then maybe it's turned into a little retreat with like 4 churches.
Yeah.
And then that might turn into, something with a bigger network, or maybe a little workshop at a conference. And this ball started rolling. So about 7 years ago, I really felt like now is the time to maybe take that step and step away from the ministry engagements I had and see where it went. And I really trusted God.
That's scary.
It was scary because
Wow.
you're leaving security, you're leaving a salary
Yeah.
to a world of the unknown, essentially.
Yeah.
But I had this peace, honestly, where I felt like if I fell flat on my face, who cares? Just get back up. Life's not that complicated. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, don't make it more complicated.
Yeah.
So I took that step. Now here we are 7 years later, and been able to travel around the world, around North America, and really great, awesome things. And I still do a group of like 7 people, but then some crowds are 17,000 people. It all depends on the stages,
Crazy.
Yeah.
and it depends on who,
That's
for,
amazing.
for whatever reason, says, hey, come partner up, come team up, I want to be a part of this. And I make myself available as much as I can, and I try not to let too many things get in the way, and here we are. So
I'm sure
I don't
like
know.
a lot of this stuff can start to feel, when you're in it, but when you look back, it might feel like a bit of a blur. But what are some events that have stood out to you?
Oh, yeah. So, that's a great question. So, one of the first events that really stuck out to me was an event called Today's Teens. So, Today's Teens, we've done some stuff with them.
Yeah.
But before I was doing the speaking stuff, I was that person in youth ministry, young adult ministry, thinking I know it all. And I remember reaching out to Today's Teens. And I said, hey, I would love to do a workshop. And one of the people who run it sent a very kind message back, basically said, Mike, you're not ready yet, but who knows, maybe one day if you keep working hard, this is me typing, I'm pretending to keep typing. I'm wondering what am I doing? Oh, sorry, that's me typing. But he said, but if you keep working hard, maybe one day you might be the keynote speaker at Today's Teens. So 5 years ago, I get this phone call and it says, you want to be the keynote speaker. It's like, wow. So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
really cool. So that has, some history to it. Not to say that's when I arrived or anything like that, but just getting that reality check, but also that encouragement, saying keep working hard, keep going it, keep following these dreams. So the first time I had that opportunity for that particular conference was an amazing moment. Another one, there's a festival in the US I would go to when I was a little younger called Kingdom Bound. And, we all Kingdom Bound. I think we all know Kingdom Bound in some way, shape, or form.
And it's in
New York.
New York,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
New York
yeah.
State. New York State. It's in New York State.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
It's not
difference,
New
yeah.
York.
Yeah. New York
Sometimes people
State.
say New York, you think they're talking about New York City, and it's like Buffalo. It's not. We all love
Rochester.
Buffalo, but we all love Buffalo. So that's another one. I remember just being there, attending, and you get those things in your heart,
Right.
saying one day you can actually picture yourself up there.
Yeah.
Not just dreaming would be cool, but one day you can actually. So again, when they invited me out to do that event a few years ago, I've been doing that one for 5 or 6 years now. But
And how many people go to that when you speak to?
I think throughout the weekend they would get about 50,000 people, and so I've been kind of divided up a little
Yeah.
bit. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
When
And do you get, sorry to interrupt, do you
Sorry,
get
no.
nervous with 50,000 people?
Not anymore.
Okay.
You get used to it, you get comfortable, but it grows. There
Right.
was a time where I would get nervous in front of 20 people,
Right.
but then that become normal.
Yeah.
And I think through the way for myself, through the journey, I realized, like, I bombed enough in front of people. In other words, like, where you kind of
yeah,
realize,
like
Done this
Yeah.
perfectly every
Yeah.
time?
yeah.
Yeah. And
And
you
then-
get up again.
Yeah, that's the thing. After a while, you realize, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
And it takes away some of that fear. Now, again, 20 people and 20,000 people, it's a little nerve-wracking, the first few times you do that, but again, you become comfortable with it,
Yeah.
like anything in life,
So what do you talk about? Because I mean, here you are, and for some people, possibly older, mature people, they're like, what does this guy have to say about the world and experiencing God?
Yeah.
And so that'd be interesting to know, like what's sort of the topics or themes that you talk about?
100%. So the way I usually do it, I don't have like that one message I travel with.
Okay.
And in other words, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on one topic. So what I do, a lot of times is every spring I do a big spring tour, and the spring tour is usually around 85 cities or so.
Whoa.
And,
Wow.
so it gets pretty big.
Wow.
But for the spring tour, I would say, okay, well, what is it going on in our culture? What is it that we're facing? What is it that I feel like this generation needs to hear? So, the last tour I did just looked at the idea of understanding the things of this world will not fulfill you. And a lot of time we think, well, if I just have this, or if I just become that popular, then it's going to fulfill the deep desire of loneliness that's embedded in all of us.
Yeah.
So that whole topic was actually connected to social media and how many of us put our fulfillment into how many likes we
Right,
get and
right.
whatnot, and kind of realize, even if you do take hold of it, it's like, that's it.
Right.
I thought it would be more than that. I thought, or when you achieve that accomplishment, I thought it would.
Yeah.
And so we looked at the idea, it's actually Christ that's going to fulfill you, rather than these other things of the world. I think that was just a very practical message for people. I do a lot of talks on dreams and the idea of, getting out of your comfort zone, doing something outside the norm. A lot of times we limit ourselves, and we're human, and we can look at ourselves and say, well, I can only do this, so why bother try that?
Yeah.
But I always feel like if God puts a passion on your heart, I don't think that's by accident. I do believe God given everyone some skills and talents.
Right.
Whatever that looks like, big or small, but even a small talent, you can still do something with
Right.
it.
Yeah.
But I also feel like through that, there's like,
great.
God puts like a heartbreak on our heart. And in other words, like something that we look out and see in this world and it says like, that shouldn't be that way.
Right.
Or someone needs to do something there. And maybe when you start putting these things together, ultimately, I think all of us, we have a step that we can take, and something that we can do to extend, ourselves to others, and essentially God's love to other people. But
So good.
sometimes we don't realize that,
Yeah.
So let me ask you then, what was your heartbreak, or is your heartbreak, or is it always changing?
It's
or-
always changing. That's a great question. Always changing. So the backtrack a little bit, when I became a Christian, it was through a sports outreach program.
Okay.
So at the end of high school.
Badminton?
It was curling. It was curling. No.
Bocce ball?
Yeah.
Really brings out the youth of today.
I was there by myself. No.
Then followed by Scrabble.
So funny. Oh yeah, so funny. I love it.
What sports?
So what badminton? No. I'm joking,
That would have been awesome.
This one was basketball.
Okay.
So I was on my high school basketball team. That was a big thing. And a church in the neighborhood started renting a gym and said anyone can come out.
That's cool. Yeah.
Decided to come out. And through that, connected with the pastor and eventually gave my life to Christ.
Wow.
Amazing.
Now, I went into ministry like a year and a half later.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah,
Whoa.
one of those like.
And how old were you?
I was 18 when I gave my life to Christ.
Wow.
So just before 20, I took one of those like summer intern positions, and where they hire anybody, pretty much,
Do you breathe?
I love it. Yeah, you're good.
Can you
You're good.
lift boxes?
I
Great.
love it.
Yeah.
And so when I first started ministry, really my passion and that skill and that heartbreak was actually connected to how I became a Christian. So that I had passion for sports and people. And the skill, I was decent at sports. At this point, I didn't have Bible college education and
Right.
I didn't have a lot of skill to offer, but I can play sports. And the heartbreak was seeing all these people, some of them I knew, who are looking for a connection, looking for identity, looking for love, looking for, essentially, I believe, Jesus. They may not realize Jesus is the one they're looking
Right.
for. That's how I started in ministry, and that started with the passion, the skills, and that heartbreak.
Right.
That had changed quite a bit over the years, and but the reality is, it's like following the passion I had then that took me here, and then I
Right.
discovered new passions. Something else kind of gets your attention, something else breaks your heart.
Right.
Maybe you get more education or experience where you have a little more to offer.
Yeah.
So it kind of started going like this and that and all around, and some of the passion came into developing ministries and starting ministries from scratch, which I did for many years, and that connected to a skill set and a heartbreak where you look around churches and organizations and, well, there's nothing happening here. Maybe they need a ministry, or this is not working. Maybe you can come along. And
Well, and I love how you're breaking this down. I'm noticing,
Yeah.
like, this whole conversation we're having with you, you're talking about how it started and then built
Yeah.
over time. Because I think a lot of people who have these dreams, they see what you're doing. Like, if their dream was to be a speaker,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, like, how do I get in front of a crowd of 20,000
Right.
people? Like, no, like, talk to the 5 people that God has already given you, and then maybe that will grow into 10, and
I
maybe
agree.
that 10
Yeah.
will give an opportunity to speak to 50,
Yeah.
maybe the 50, 100, 1,000,
Yeah,
whatever.
100%.
But it's this like if this discouragement where people feel like they don't know how to get from where they are today to where they want to go.
100%.
And like you're breaking it down, like whether that's in how you've done like building ministries or that's how you've gotten into your speaking career. Like you're being really clear, like you started with like a few people and they said no to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they just said, they didn't say never, they just said like you got work to do before you can get to this. And people
Good.
want it like right away.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
it's not gonna happen right away.
Exactly, and I think that's what people don't see all the time. 'Cause starting those ministries, when you start something, I kind of had to speak.
Yeah.
And that's where that passion
Yeah,
came,
you're the
came
only
along.
one there.
But like I said, the last 14 years, I could not have said this is where I would be. But I do get a lot of emails, a lot of people pulling me aside after events, and a lot of text messages and whatnot. And people say, "Hey, I want to do what you do," and you're exactly right. They want to go from like A to Z
Yeah.
Right.
without all this other stuff in between.
All the hard work too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I try my best to. I try to encourage everyone as much as I can. But part of encouraging is giving them the reality as well. It does take hard work, and it wasn't just one day I appeared on stage with Lecrae. You know what I mean? Like that's not how it started. That's not how it usually starts.
Right.
Believe it or not. But
Yeah.
sometimes, and I was very naive, to be bluntly honest. When it came to the speaking, I would just write a book. Well, no one knows you. Who can buy your book? Like, I'll just put a YouTube video out that get 30 million people to watch it. Well, it's not that easy. If it is, show me how to do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it was easy, everybody would do
doing
it.
it.
But it's
Exactly.
because it takes so much work that very few people can get to what
Exactly.
you're doing.
Exactly. And I think it goes back to that passion, right? I think if you have a passion, you're willing to work hard. You're willing to commit. If
Yeah.
you do fall flat on your face, you'll get back up.
Yeah.
If you have that passion there. And
Yeah.
but again, it's not easy. And for whatever reason, God's given me that drive
Yeah.
to keep moving forward. But on the other end, God's opened up so many doors that I could never open on my own. So,
you know, Mike, it's incredible that, you know, you're here, you've got this passion for God, there's heartbreak, it's hard work, but I bet family and kids who knew you way back would have never thought you'd be here.
Oh,
because you didn't grow up in a Christian home. So give us some background about that, because, you know, 18, you come to Jesus through sports, but before that, what was your life like? And then what was sort of that moment where you're like, I want to give my life to Jesus?
oh, that's beautiful. So I did not grow up in a Christian home. I think if we identified anything as Christian, and just if we were going to be anything, let's say we're Christian. But looking back in hindsight, I would not call ourselves a Christian family, Christian home. So growing up, it really was do whatever. It didn't really, maybe we might go to church on, you know, an Easter weekend if my grandma, you know, was involved in that. So what happened in my life, kind of that turning point, was when I was 13, my mom and dad, they broke up. And my mom was cheating on my dad, and it's just like a weird situation where, you know, a little challenging to keep a marriage going. Not to say it's impossible, because I know people who have been able to reconcile, but in this situation, that's not what happened. And so at 14 years old, my mom thought, hey, you know, maybe this boyfriend can come move in and be the new father and just kind of replace my dad. And in my mind, this guy played a big part of ruining my life, just to be honest. So I didn't get along with him, and I eventually got kicked out of my house and had to move in with my dad. And he wasn't, he did his best, but, you know, he had his own issues, to say the least. And the reality is, in high school, I was in that situation where essentially I could do whatever I want. You know, my dad didn't care, essentially, when I came home, who I hung out with, what I did, like. And I know for young people, they say that's the dream. I know for young people, they say, I wish my parent didn't care. Like, they should thank God, like, that their parents care.
Right.
Because essentially I was a product of parents essentially not caring. So I could go do whatever I want. And I got involved in the wrong crowds, and I was looking for whatever it was around me that could fulfill me. So if the culture said, this is how you do it, through girls, or through drugs, or through partying, or through money, or crime, or whatever that was. And I was just this lost kid just trying to turn to whatever I thought maybe did something, but maybe fulfilled me. And I was just
There were no boundaries.
No boundaries.
So you could just do
Exactly.
what you want. Did you go to school? Were you,
Yeah.
or were you leaving?
Yeah,
You're
so
not really in high school.
Yeah, so I went to school. So interesting enough, playing basketball in my school,
Oh, that
you
kept
had
you
to
there.
you had to be passing. They gave you you're allowed to fail one class. Okay, so you basically had to be passing the majority of your classes.
Okay.
And honestly, sports was a big thing for me. So that's what kept me just getting by, doing the minimum.
Wow, okay.
But it got me, you know, through high school and OAC. I'm not sure if anyone knows what OAC is.
I was
but
part of OAC.
Yeah, grade 13 and whatnot. So, but it was around that time where I could do whatever I wanted, but I was empty. Like, I was broken. I wasn't fulfilled. And I don't mean that as cliche. Like, I was walking around with a chip on my shoulder. I wouldn't say hello to people. I wouldn't laugh. Like, I didn't... I wasn't a friendly person. I just was not enjoying life. So around that time, I had a friend who invited me out to a basketball ministry, like we talked about earlier. And that's where I went and met the pastor and made this decision.
But isn't that key? There's so many times I hear people going, well, I don't want to ask somebody. That's awkward, or it's uncomfortable, and they're going to say no. And I've always said to people, so what if they say no?
So true.
Right.
What's the worst that could happen? They say, no, we don't want to go play basketball. Okay, well, we're going to go play. But like that friend to ask you, that's huge, because that was sort of the catalyst of you getting there and then finding Jesus.
I agree.
But what was
You
it
know?
about this pastor? Like, do you like...
Oh, I totally remember. So
That you felt like, oh, I'm going to build a relationship with this guy even though I don't really like most people.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's a great question. So his name was Rob, and Rob, every time I would show up, he would just do what normal people would do. Say, hey, how's it going? How's your week going? Now, for me, that wasn't really normal. I wasn't really getting that on a day-to-day basis. So I'm sure Rob had no idea. He probably just being friendly. At first, I was a little like, this is weird. Like, why is this guy like, you know, why does he care about my life, you know? And, but I started building a trust up with him when I really started seeing this guy is sincere. Like, he really does care about me. He does care how my basketball game went, or how my baseball game went, or how my exam went, or whatnot. So just that simple love. He didn't come at me with the, okay, here, your first time here, I want you to memorize Genesis. You know, like he didn't. You know, that's not how it started, right? it was just simply, how's it going?
Yeah.
And then he invited me out for
caring.
lunch. We
Wow.
started connecting on a deeper level.
That's so
And
cool.
Really cool. It
Yeah.
just came to a point where I trusted him. So when he eventually said, hey, you want to check out church? There's enough trust there to say, let's go for it.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I'm really encouraging, I think, for the people out there who do have these ministries. Like, and now look at you. Like, you're able to share the love of Christ and the gospel with 50,000 people on a given weekend. Like, that's really encouraging, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
The punk from the basketball team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Speaking in front
Yeah,
of
exactly.
thousands.
Wow.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
that's
amazing.
Cool.
Mike, when you are out with people, or even, as we're talking to viewers all over the world, it's, there's got to be something about Jesus. It's been part of our show because all of us say, and very publicly, that we follow Jesus. He's the reason we do what we do. He's the best person to look to on how to live. What would you say? Because there's a lot of, young people that are watching. We have a lot of millennials watching, and there's, skepticism, and maybe they don't like the commitment part, or that kind of thing. What would you say? Why Jesus for you, or why Jesus for anyone?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the reality is, if it was years ago on my end, which is a different generation than what we see now, but if it was then or now, I feel like culture has a big say in who Jesus is. And I know when I was younger in the high school days, like culture would say Jesus is this, and they kind of labeled Jesus as kind of this nerdy kind of stereotype. And when you're in high school, like your perception, like how people see you, like your public image, that's probably more important than anything. And so it's almost like we don't go to that Bible club and whatnot. And it's kind of funny, but now here we are years later, and it's still, culture around us is painting a picture of who Jesus is, or in many cases who he's not. But a lot of people around us, we kind of make our decision on who Jesus is without even looking into who Jesus is. It's funny how many people we talk to have a very strong opinion about Jesus, but have never opened up the Bible. Or they read this article trashing the Bible. And so one thing I would say for anyone, regardless of how young and old, is don't let the culture around you define who Jesus is. There's lots of people you can turn to and talk to and ask questions. I'm sure if you don't know anyone, you can, as weird as it is, I'm sure you can email a random church and say, hey, I have a question. There's many ways to get, and there's also really great resources online. But I would say, figure it out. Like, examine it, taste it, look into it. Like, if you're going to have this big passionate conversation about, where you stand with Jesus on the negative side without really knowing where you stand. And the reality is, for some people, they say, well, I'm not really looking for Jesus. But some people I know on a personal level, and I might have been one of those people who, part of this conversation, letting culture tell you who Jesus is, actually makes you more interested to figure out who is Jesus. And you kind of take hold of this faith on just a different level, through it all. And so I would say for young people, like, don't let people around you tell you who Jesus is, or, paint the stereotype of what a Christian is. Because if we're being honest here in 2017, like, in just this year and where we are, for many of us, if we say we're a Christian, especially someone who doesn't know Jesus, like, how many of us, if we're honest, we're afraid all of a sudden in their head they're kind of labeling us as A, B, C right now. And I think so many people are afraid to kind of be put in that boat, where they kind of go with the popular decision. And I love the Message version of the Bible. I know sometimes we don't always use the Message version. People start throwing red flags. I don't know why, but it says, don't be so well adjusted to your culture where you fit in without thinking.
Right.
And I think that's what you're
that.
seeing quite a bit right
I
now.
love
Like,
that.
don't be so well adjusted to your culture where people are just fitting in, going with the flow, and just taking whatever thought or way of thinking that our culture around us is telling us, and not even processing it, not even thinking, not even filtering, like, what does that look like?
Yeah, you know what? I also, as you're speaking, that even just for non-Christians, for actual Christians, in that concept of who Jesus is. I was one of those Christians born and raised in the bubble. Like, that's all I knew. But then I met Jesus in actual pain. Like, I met him in, when life kind of fell apart, and I actually had to find out who he was for myself. And that was actually a lot of freedom in that. So I love that you're saying that, and I love that you're encouraging people, and I want to take the leap and encourage Christians to actually, if you haven't actually met Jesus. So maybe you can say, if we have time, what was your Jesus moment? When did you so basketball where you met the pastor, and then church, great, but when did you meet Jesus?
No, that's a great question. So I would show up to church, because I built that trust with the pastor, but I didn't know what was happening. The pastor goes in, he's wearing a giant Snuggie, and you're like, I don't know what's going on, right? And so you would go there, and it was actually during a small group.
Okay.
The pastor said, hey, we're going to go on a mission trip to Mexico.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, I don't know what a mission trip is. I know what Mexico is. Yeah, exactly.
Mexico. Yeah.
And it was actually down there when one of the nights, the pastor from a different church gave a gospel message. And here's the first time I've ever heard the full gospel.
Wow.
Now, in hindsight, the people he was speaking to was 25, 30 kids who were down there doing missions. As a speaker, my assumption is everyone knows Jesus.
Right.
I probably wouldn't go in and say, let's do a gospel message.
Yeah.
He didn't make that assumption. He
Yeah.
went in there
So
Wednesday
good.
night, gave a gospel presentation,
Yeah.
gave his invite. That's for people to follow Jesus. And I made that
Yeah, you don't
decision.
know who's
Yeah.
you don't
I
know
knew
who's
that was
in
me.
the
I
room.
knew that was
Right.
me. So I that night
Wow.
gave my life to Christ. I'm crying, I'm bawling, but that was that moment where I said, Lord, I'm done doing life my way. I want to do life your way.
Oh, that's
So-
powerful. I always say the gospel is powerful. It can cut, and sometimes I'm like, sometimes we like to edit and soften it to make it more acceptable for people. But are there moments where it's like, you will either receive it and get it, or you won't, and that's what happens in life. Or there'll be people like you who'll go, got it.
Yeah, but it's just, as you were saying, there's so many missed opportunities because we just don't ask.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Like, whether it's asking to basketball or asking if you want to accept Christ into your life.
Yes.
Or even asking if they've heard the gospel message. I did that once with a friend, and I was like, do you know anything about the message? And she's like, no. And I was like, huh? My world has been, and then I shared it, and I actually was really convicted because I was like, this is the first time I've ever shared the gospel properly.
Wow,
And I
that's good.
butchered it. I did a horrible job. I didn't have my Bible with me, but she ended up accepting. And that's the power of God, and that's,
Yeah.
Because it's not about us.
No, it isn't.
We
Exactly.
just point to Jesus.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Mike, thank you so much.
So
I
good.
mean, honestly, we could do a part 2, and next time we got to come back, and we've got to do that. But I think those are some really good takeaways. Ask.
Yeah.
Ask your friend, invite them out. And, I think that's key. I think relationship. How are you doing?
Right. Yep.
Simple as
Right.
that. Join the badminton team. Basketball. Sorry, I love badminton. Okay, so I was a badminton player in high school. Anyway.
Tangent.
Right, tangent, totally. And I think also, too, the hard work. It's like, the real, realistically, it's not like you're here to go to, Z or Z, but it's you got to do the hard work, be faithful to God's
Yes.
call,
Yeah.
and obedient to it.
So good.
And you're the example, so thank you.
Yeah,
thank you
It's
guys.
so fun to have you
You
here.
guys are awesome.
And
Thank
so
you.
how do people find you if
Yeah,
they
talk
wanted
to-
you in their church? They wanted
Yeah,
you to come
so-
speak at their event or something.
Yeah, so my website's the easiest way. It'd be
Okay.
www.mike-gordon.ca.
Mike Gordon.
And it's dash.
A dash,
Mike
a dash.
dash
Mike dash Gordon.
Yeah, someone owned the
.ca.
other one, So.
Awesome.
Well, thanks again. Abby,
you guys.
Joanna, thank you so much for your thoughts. Mike, thank you so much. And to viewers, thank you so much for joining us around the table. If there are some things that Mike said, Joanna, Abby, myself said, that you're like, I need to have some encouragement or ask a few more questions, go to our website at seeherelove.com, go to say hello, click the button, and we would love to talk with you and pray for you on your faith journey. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for all the latest news about us. And again, don't forget that you are seen, heard, and deeply loved by God. Bye-bye.